G'day fellas and welcome to the Sengoku Daimyo Strategy Corner. I don't know exactly how I'm going to be wording this, but this video is about the Dark Age of the Sengoku Daimyo. In today's video, we will be reviewing a strategy that I've sort of like had a vision for since I first saw this civilization. The whole concept is quite simple. Stay in the Dark Age, win the game. Now, of course, there's a little bit more complexity to it, so this video is going to be in two parts. The first part, we're going to be walking through a game here. We're up against a player who is, I think at the moment, Conqueror 2, about to be hit Conqueror 3, 90% win rate on the ladder for this current season. I think he's won about 36 games so far, so he's doing quite well. And we're playing up against the Tughlag, or the Tughlag Dynasty. Now, the whole premise of this strategy rests on one building specifically, and that is the Matsuri. The idea is quite simple. We build a Matsuri, and we start training Yatai. And the biggest issue that you have, at least so far from what I've seen on a ranked level, is that, number one, when you're in the Dark Age, your opponent is going to be putting pressure on you quite soon. So it can be a little bit difficult working out that transition timing. I've seen players like, I think Voldemar does a 1 Yatai transition up to the Feudal Age. I've seen Beastie who does a 2 Yatai transition. And I've seen people reporting on Reddit saying, you know, it was a little bit hard. You feel very, very much behind. So I was confident that we could try and find something where basically you spend even longer in the Dark Age, but the justification being that you actually get more units out earlier. And one of the great things about the Sengoku Daimyo, the fact that they're a Japanese variant, allows them to get access to an early samurai. So it means that if you're pumping out spearmen, and the enemy goes for archers, you can just make samurai instead and very easily switch over to that. And it doesn't necessarily deal with the issue, but it gives them something to think about while you continue doing what you're doing. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is going to be a two-part video. The first part here is the first game we're playing against this player. The second part will be the second game that we play against this player, because I will tell you now, this player went for a strategy that I was not really expecting. Not to say that he did something cheesy, it was just something that, well, I hadn't really thought about. Let's just put it that way. So our game plan from the start is also that we're going to be moving into traders as well. So after we've got all of our Yatai out, we'll go into traders. So the maps that I've selected for my ranked map pool are very much focused about the positioning of the neutral trading posts, just because some maps don't actually have trading posts, so it's important that you don't play those maps, because this strategy probably wouldn't work in that. The whole concept here is that you can really leverage into the early access on the market, giving you early access to the trader. It makes a lot of sense, because if we think about normally, like, part of the reason why fish booming is so strong is because you have access to a dock in the Dark Age. You can start early, and by the time that you have reached the Feudal Age, you're almost at parity to where a normal player would be. So the thinking here is that we can apply that same logic. We can get out these early traders. So here we're at the 3-minute mark and our first trader has come out. We're essentially doing a 2 town center boom, but from the very beginning of the game. So if we were to compare where we are to our opponent right now, we're up 3 Yatais and a trader at this stage of the game. And of course, every minute that goes by, those units are going to be producing more resources, contributing more resources, and that's essentially the philosophy. So the question's not so much about how do you win the game, but more so how do you survive to get to a position where your economy will be able to overpower the enemy. And I will say right now that with this strategy, your economy is an absolute powerhouse. It is incredibly powerful. How many resources you've got in the early game, as long as you can survive. I think there's that first crucial 7 to 8 minute mark that is really, really strong. So another thing to note is that when it comes to your spawns, especially when you're doing trading, you really want to make sure that you're building your first Matsuri needs to be in an optimal position, so that means normally on a wood line, but your second Matsuri, as you can see me looking to put down right now, we're trying to put this as far away from the trade post that we possibly can, that's also in a defensible location. So initially I'm thinking about this, and then actually I realized, hold on, we can just go to the corner and then we can just wall this bad boy in. Of course, we're playing on cliffside here, and it is notorious for just how good those walls are. We go for a nice little annoying surround here on the scout. He manages to get out, but fortunately, the last dagger shot comes through. I don't actually know where my scout went in this game. I kind of lost him at this point. I suspect he must have died to the enemy town center, and I just wasn't paying attention. But yeah, I was looking for him. I couldn't find him. Anyway, less of an important note. So at this stage, we're 5 minutes into the game, and we haven't really even thought about aging up yet. We've just got 2 villages that are on gold, and we've got traders that are coming in. Now, the traders aren't making a whole lot of gold at this stage of the game, and I've done the math exactly on where you want it, and to be honest, at least in the early game, you can definitely get away with a Yatai that's even got like, or a Matsuri that is producing, let's say, around like 20 gold per trader. So here you can see 18 gold. Like, this isn't terrible at all. Like, you could absolutely go up to 6 or 7 traders on this. But my thinking is, if we're gonna leverage this as much as we possibly can, let's really try and do it. It's gonna be hard for our opponent to try and hit us in multiple spots, right? They're not gonna really be able to shut us down on one side or the other. And further to that point, part of my rationale about why traders might be quite good as this civilization in the Dark Age is if you're making units to defend Yatai in the Dark Age, then you may as well double down and make traders as well. And often you're going to find those things lined up. So as an example, in this game, if we take a look on the minimap, you'll be able to see, this is a recording, by the way, I'm not actually playing. This is a recording, and on the minimap, you can see we've got the boar, and we've got the deer, and we've got the berries, but we've also got the trade route right there, which basically means if we're parking our units there to cover the enemy aggression, let's say at the 10-minute mark, 11-minute mark, or so, we're also covering our traders, as well as the Yatai. So we're able to defend 2 things at the same time there. That's the whole mindset behind it. It might be a little bit of a smaller detail, but anyway. When it comes to the minutiae of this build, I'll talk a little bit more in depth about it in the second part of this video, because there will be 2 games. I will spoil it for you now. The first game we do lose. So this is the first game, obviously, because we're watching it first. We do lose this game. We're going to try our best to win, but it's all in the past, as you will know. And you can see the healer elephants starting to build up here. And these are just such an interesting design, because it's so difficult to deal with these units. You very much have to be all or nothing with these units. If they get away, even as you can see right here on half HP, they're just going to come back full health. And so you have to be very cautious about the fights that you take with them. You have to almost always go for a surround when you're playing against them, and it made it quite difficult. And it was still something that I'm adjusting to. These are my first ranked games, by the way. This is my very first ranked game that I'm playing on this current patch. For the moment, I'm sticking with Sengoku, but I think I might switch over to the Macedonians as well once I feel like I've mastered the Dark Age. Once we master the Dark Age. Anyway, the age up comes through, 7 minutes. Not a bad little timing here as well. We've got the Real Khan in the front of the base, and you can see the enemy numbers starting to really build up here. We've got to be careful not to lose villagers. And one of the interesting things, I didn't realize that there's AoE damage on these elephants. They do not mess around. So I think when they're attacking a nearby building, the units next to the building will receive damage. I think that's what's happening. Anyway, we're throwing away a whole bunch of our units here at this stage. You can see we've got 6 spears. We do manage to get us around on the first of the elephants, but the trouble that we've got is those archers will eventually and quite easily kill off our spears. So we're not transitioning fast enough, and you can see the macro right now is absolutely terrible. We've got 600 gold in the bank, which is a huge amount of gold. Our traders have been working overtime. So one of the things that you can leverage is the Matsuri, its ability as a market to trade out those resources. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to purchase a whole bunch of wood here, and I think this is probably the go-to thing, right? Like, you should be looking for upgrades. You should probably be looking for like your typical sort of wheelbarrow replacement upgrades. You should be looking to try and pick up your +1s, your +2 melee, all that kind of stuff. But then once you've done that, there's really not much to spend gold on. You can go into the Konobo Samurai, and I think they're very, very nice in this matchup, especially because you're up against elephants. You can also just go into normal Samurais, which are, you know, equally as good. But other than that, there's really not much to do. I guess you can also technically invest further into traders, but, you know, if you're sitting on 600 gold, you've probably got quite a decent number of traders. So I don't know what the optimal trader number is. I suspect it's probably going to be something in the region of like 30 or 40 traders. I think we'll be absolutely fine. My suspicion is that when it comes to also transitions into like mid-game, you want to definitely leverage the Ashigaru, or the Yumi, not Yumi Ashigaru, the crossbow replacement. I apologize. I can't remember the Ashigaru. Yeah, Ashigaru. I can't remember. I'm sorry. I've lost it. But anyway. So we're going to try and defend here, and I think opening with cavalry definitely makes quite a bit of sense, at least initially. Opening with like Yari cavalry together with a barracks, and then switching into archery ranges as you're about to hit castle to get that crossbow leverage in. Of course, you can always move into mounted samurai as well, a great way to spend plenty of gold. Taganashima Ashigaru, there we go. I got it, right? I think that's what it's called, the Taganashima Ashigaru. I remembered it eventually. It took me some time. But one of the things to note, though, for this game is, as you can see, we're stacking up so much resources. And this is just a case of, like, me just slowly getting back into the groove of things here. So I'm not going to bog you guys down too much in this game. We're going to speed it up and just get to the end. I'll show you the final battle. We're just going to speed through this just because, well, as I said, I don't want to bog you down. And then we're going to get into the second game. We're actually going to dive into the replay of that game instead of watching the first-person perspective. I just sort of wanted this opportunity here to sort of talk about it, show the first-person perspective for a little bit, and then dive into it. So here you can see the trouble that we've got. Basically, where we've got units, the trouble is, I think very much you need to be quite micro-intensive on focusing down units here, and if you attack move in the same way that I have, you're going to be in for big trouble. So what are your options? You can go for a big archer ball. That could be a decent way to counter this. So that's one of your options. Number two is just having more units out, right? Like we definitely didn't macro as effectively as we could. So anyway, let's dive into the second game and talk about the opening, what the build order looks like. Okay, so we're here in the second game against the same player, obviously defeating us in the first one, and we will do our best to get him back on the second. Our opening here is, I think, probably what will become the standard opening. So I think it's credit to Beastie for this one, where you put 5 vills over onto your straggler tree. 1 villager will go over and build your Matsuri. You've obviously queued up villagers in the town center. Scout's going to head out into the middle of the map. And then from there, you're going to be rallying down onto your nearest deer pack. And I like this a lot. So initially, I was doing this combination where I would rally onto the starting tree. Basically, I want to try and get my Yatai out as quickly as I could, but there was no easy way to guarantee that I wouldn't go idle at the town center for at least like a second or two. So I've just kind of settled on this, and it just makes sense, right? Going for the deer, the fact that you get survival techniques as a base as well is incredible. Like it's on by default is just very, very nice for this civilization. So I think you very much want to leverage that. So I'm opening up with 5 villagers on the straggler tree and 3 villagers now coming down to the deer. So that was 2 from the town center and then 1 from the Matsuri. And then from here, you can do a force drop off with your villagers to the town center. Once they reach 5 wood each, then you can drop them off to get the early Yatai out. So that is a potential option for you, or you can just let them go the same way that we've done here. You've also got the option of going onto the straggler trees or just onto the woodline itself. And I think woodline itself is probably a better bet just because you've got slightly less walking time. So it definitely adds up over the course of a game. So from here, after we've got the 3 villagers on deer, it's a matter of just rallying over onto wood. And we're going to go up to 10 villagers on wood in this early stages of the game. So I feel a lot more comfortable here in the actual replay than watching it from the POV, just because the POV, I obviously can't really control that much. It's quite high octane, high pace as well. You can see the enemy right now with his worker elephants. How many worker elephants has he got out right now? You can see 2 worker elephants out. Obviously, he's got 1 back at home as well. So he is a happy little camper here. He gets so many sheep, it's crazy. But I guess that's just the civilization. You can see we had a little bit of idle time there. Wasn't really paying attention, I think, because of the work elephant. So apologize. That's quite a bit of idle time. I think about 10 seconds. So we continue adding in additional Yatai. So this is going to be our second Yatai that's going to be coming out here. This is a beautiful little spot, the deer together with the berries. So we bring the sheep out as well, just so that the sheep can also add to the bonus for the Yatai. We want to make sure that this guy is sitting on as high a food income as he possibly can. Now keep in mind, 53 food a minute with no drop off and it's infinite. That's incredible. That is 1.2 villagers that's coming through. At the same time down here, we've got effectively 1.5 villagers that's coming through. This is a huge amount of early game economy that we've got over the opponent. So the sooner that we can get these online, the better. And as I mentioned, like the issue that I've seen people are having is primarily the fact or that transition, and they're cutting Yatai. And in a perfect world, you'd love to have all 3 of your Yatai out as soon as you possibly can, because at the end of the day, it's a huge amount of resources that's coming through, and you're missing out on those if you don't have them. So that's essentially the thinking behind it. We want to try and rush those out. From here, we're going to look for traders, and the key adaptation that I make in this game specifically is I actually want to get more units out. I think more units might actually be a good thing, because when we think about going up to feudal age, like realistically, what are we doing with this civilization? Not a whole lot. Like Koka Township doesn't add anything. Ryokan doesn't really add anything. Yeah, it gives you the 60 population, which is very nice. But realistically, there's not much that you need from there. So I think it's quite important that we just, really, we need to respect it. You can see here the boar playing little games with us, unfortunately. But yeah, we very much need to respect the enemy and make sure that there is an appropriate number of units coming out. So here you can see our first trader coming out, 16 gold, not the best. Unfortunately, the trading posts here are towards the middle of the map, unfortunately not towards the edges of the map, and it means that we will have to go with a subsequent trade post towards the back. But that's, you know, it's a relatively good trade route. It's not the safest, I'll say that right now, but it's still decent. It's still decent. There are worse that you can find. So we've got our first spearman now coming out. He's going to look to defend just early on. This is going to be obviously the place where our opponent is going to look to put their aggression, right? Berries, we've got all of the deer out here, the Yadai's out here. So if they can isolate this, starting off by just putting a bit of siege onto the farmhouse, then that's going to mean that it's less damage that needs to be done inevitably by the elephants that make their way through. So we do expect that Dome of the Faith is going to be coming in as well, because we played that first game against him, and that's what we saw. So all the sheep have come back. Another thing to note with your sheep, you always want to try and keep them near the Yatai. So here is an example where, well, we probably want to bring just 3 sheep over here, but we might as well just bring them all over. It's one of those little decisions. Alternatively, you can just move the Yatai over and he'll cover that. But at this stage, we've got the first Yatai doing 60 food, equal to 1.5 villages. The second one doing 56 food, which is basically 1.5 villages as well. And the third one doing 53. So all in all, I would say that we're sitting at about 4 to 5 villages just because of the Yatai, which is incredible. And then on top of that, we're now going to be looking to add in traders. We've got our first 2 traders that are already out, and our Matsuri is in the back corner. So this is a second Matsuri that we've just put down, and it's going to mean that these traders effectively go from about... I'm trying to think the best way to express it. Probably in gold per minute. From about 30 gold per minute. Oh, they're probably even lower than that. They're probably sitting at about 20 gold per minute on their current runs and up to 45. So they'll go up to about 30 to 35 gold per minute now on these current runs, which puts them effectively the same as a standard villager on gold. So basically, if we just had an extra 2 villagers on gold. So if we were to think about it from an economic perspective right now, excuse the UI, you can see here the Yatai is not expressed. But if we were to take a look at the income per minute, I suspect would probably be a fair bit above our enemy. We're actually not. They are surprisingly keeping up, but I guess it probably doesn't translate 100% across just at this stage. Let's switch it back over to the regular UI. I think regular UI is probably a bit better when we're just tracking along on a single player the same way we're doing here. So here we're at the 6-minute mark, and once again, we're not in a rush to get up to the feudal age, because the truth is, like, the only thing that we're really doing at the feudal age is dropping a stable down. That's the primary thing that we're doing, dropping the stable down, making sure that we've got plenty of Yari cavalry in the event that the enemy is going into archers, and after what happened in the last game, we know it's probably going to be that way. Now, one of the things that I love doing, you can see here at the 6-minute mark, is just getting these guys out, being aggressive, right? Like, if you're being aggressive with them, it means that your enemy's gonna have to react, gonna have to do something, and he wasn't paying attention here, and we very fortunately almost get the surround. We get on the other side of him, and you can see that we're able to do quite a bit of damage here. He's got the second one that's coming out as well, but if we can take the first one down, that's gonna really hurt his tempo quite a lot, and unfortunately spears do very well against them, so in the end we're indeed able to take them out. Ryokan now going to be coming up. I'm still not sure what the most efficient way is as well to age up. I suspect it may be with gold villages, maybe your best bet, but my thinking is you probably also want to make sure that you've got traders that are coming in throughout this period. So I don't know, maybe you leave like 2 villages on gold. So I still haven't done all the numbers on it. I just wanted to jump into the game and play. I tell you what, I was itching to play. I was very keen to get in here and test this strategy, especially against a competent opponent. So as I mentioned, at the moment he's Conqueror 2 with 90% win rate. I suspect he'll probably be Conqueror 3 by the end of the day, the way that he's winning games. So I'll have to keep an eye out on that. But yeah, he's a decent player, and the strategy that he's got is quite good as well. So we've got the age up coming through here, so a little bit later here, about 30 to 40 seconds later on this one, but we're feeling really comfy at this stage of the game. We're up to 4 traders. Keep in mind we've also got the 3 Yatai, so we're effectively sitting at about 8 to 9 villages higher than what the enemy is compared to us. And now we're looking to begin transitioning. So once again, so this is where it comes into this macro. Maybe food villages. Actually, now that I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, definitely food villages is going to be the right thing to age up with rather than anything else. We want to be careful not to lose these traders, of course, but it does create a target for the opponent. So they've got to come out here. They've got to try and shut this down. So instead of putting pressure on towards this position, which they definitely could be doing, they're subsequently out here trying to shut down the traders. And of course, we can utilize the second trade post. There's a second trade post on this map, and it's relatively neutrally placed, you know, towards the middle of the map. So it's got its negatives, but it's also got its positives as well. And so I'll just turn it down a little bit here. But as I was saying with regard to the samurai, the whole idea here is with the samurai is that they essentially force your opponent to do something else. It's probably not the best decision here because at the end of the day, the enemy's still just going to be able to focus down the spears and the samurai won't do enough damage to the archers. You can see the archers are just easily able to kite away. So it probably just makes sense to just stick to 100% on the spearmen, at least at this stage of the game. But we've taken an unfavorable trade. I think that's probably the best way to say it. And you can see, despite the fact that we've got that +1 attack coming through here, we don't have enough units to deal with this healer elephant, and we're forced back away from this position. So I think if we're aiming for something like a 7-minute age up or a 7-minute 30 age up, you definitely want to have at least 300 wood in the bank to drop double stables. I think that's probably going to make the most sense here. And already you can see, like, from the amount of resources we've got in the bank, like, we are floating heaps. We are obviously not playing optimally. We could definitely improve this. You know, throw this strategy in the hands of somebody like Beastie, and I think it's going to look a lot more scary than what it does here. Because if there's a strategy, like, we are facing a hyper-aggressive strategy. Maybe not hyper-aggressive. Hyper-aggressive is probably a little bit more like the Mongols with their early tower and spearmen and all that kind of stuff, right? This isn't hyper aggressive, but I mean, it's still, at the end of the day, an aggressive strategy, something that's not just letting you sit here and twiddle your thumbs. So inevitably, he makes it to our base. Behind this, macro's not the prettiest, so it means we're going to have to throw down more production to supplement it. And that's another thing to note, because you've got so many villages or so many resources that's coming through here. We're making a huge mistake, losing out 1, 2, 3 villages. So that's 3 villas that have gone down, unfortunately. So we should have moved these villas back as soon as we saw this attack. Yes, it's just the consequence of playing these high-octane games. So yeah, realistically, macro can definitely improve. And that's going to be, as we go on, because I suspect we're probably going to play quite a couple games of this. Who knows? We might do one live as well. You know what? Maybe we do one live just to see how it feels. We'll just put the tip in. And it's always harder though to commentate and play live. I'll say that right now. So that is another factor to consider. But nonetheless, we continue moving on. Meanwhile, behind this, we've still got more traders coming in. So now they're doing 48 gold per drop-off up towards this position. And we've got that dual drop-off that's coming in because obviously you want to avoid them running across the front of the TC. So that's just something extra that the enemy's going to have to think about. Another thing to note is that we're trying to pull this army apart. So if we can isolate these armies, keep in mind that we've got slow units and then units that are not slow, the archers. So if we can pull those away, especially those elephants, that's going to be a key component of victory when it comes to this. Another thing that we probably should be doing with the Yari cavalry is just parking the Yari cavalry around the back here, just to make sure that we can pick up any interceptions of those potential archers that are coming through. And we can see more of them coming through now together with the hardened spearmen. And we're just being a little bit annoying here at the back. As long as we're able to sit here and potentially draw away those units, will be a-okay. And you can see macro starting to look a little bit healthier now. +2 attackers come through, +1 ranged armors come in. And now those archers have moved a little bit too far away. And unfortunately, when those archers move a little bit too far away, it means that you can capitalize in other areas. Of course, we could try and take these out, but at the end of the day, they're the healers, and they're just going to get on the move, and it's going to make it very difficult for us. Unfortunately, he's not paying attention, and it means the Yari cavalry do indeed make connections over here. And as long as we can just cut through all this archer ball very quickly, it's going to make it much harder for him to take us out. On top of that, we've also got the Konobo Samurai, which, in my opinion, is probably the best unit that you could make against the healer elephant. A little bit more expensive, but the fact that it gets bonus damage based on the HP of the enemy unit, the max HP, it means it's going to just cut through these units very, very quickly compared to something like a hardened samurai, or a hardened samurai is probably the right way to call it. So overall, we're able to eventually overrun our opponent with a huge army here. So fortunately, it was a little bit of a misplay from him, and I think if he had better micro, he maybe would have stood up a little bit taller. But at the 12-minute mark, we have well and truly paid off our early game. Like, if we think about this Yatai down here, this Yatai has been here since the 3rd minute. This bad boy's been down here since the 3rd minute as well. These guys have all just been pumping resources for the last 9 minutes. And this is the fruits right here of those Yatai that are coming out. So they're doing incredibly well. And at the same time, we're really looking to leverage. Keep in mind, no one else has got access to Dark Age trading. Actually, do they? No. Maybe? Is there a civilization that does? I don't think there is, right? Maybe. Oh, actually, maybe the Abbasid? Or is it the Ayyubids? Because one of them acts as a market, right? I don't know whether or not it can train traders. Anyway, the whole idea is that we just want to really try and push into that as much as we can, right? We know that we're going to have to defend So we might as well make units our yatai, but then if we're already making units, then we might as well double down on the economy. The question is, do you go for an early second Matsuri and just start pumping traders before you even go into units, or do you just go into units straight up? Because I think probably you want to go into units straight up. I could double check the timing, but I think it's about 4 minutes. You're getting out your first spear, which is already pretty late, right? Like if you're up against a French or a Joan of Arc player, you're gonna need spears anyway, and it's just gonna be about you know, dealing with the enemy as they slowly push you off those yatai. If we take I don't really know if it's worth having a look at the economic difference here, because at the end of the day, we can just kind of compare here. We're sitting on 6 traders, which isn't a lot, but at the end of the day, it does definitely add up, especially if you're thinking about 1 TC. It can be a huge difference. And then the yatai with its infinite food coming through is definitely looking very good, very healthy. And to be honest, there's a lot of things that you can do with the gold, right? Like we've got all of our eco upgrades. We're getting our military upgrades that are coming through as well. Actually, I think we got all of our eco upgrades. Maybe we don't have our mining upgrade. Yeah, we don't have our mining upgrade. We've only got 6 vills on mining, so not really that relevant. But our main focus here is just on getting units out and looking to try and end the game so we can move into the Kanobo Samurai, which actually has a higher portion of gold spend than the normal Samurai does. So for that to be the same, it would need to be 30 gold, 150. Or in this case, like that's what it would be scaled up, 30 gold, 150 food. So here you're only paying 130 food, so you've got that 20 food for free. So it's effectively you're spending more gold by making the Kanobo. So I think it's definitely the right call as well to be moving into them. These units are a whole nother story as well. Let me just say that right now. I'm very excited by these units. I think they may be a contentious point for people who play against this civilization. But yes, at this stage, if we take a look at the difference between us when it comes to these numbers at the top of our screens, we're at 42-31, so it doesn't really look that bad. And economic-wise, there's really not a lot of difference, especially because he's taken out 5 vills. I'm impressed he took out 5 vills. But yeah, at this stage of the game, you can see the military numbers starting to look quite a bit healthier, especially that army value. I guess that's another thing to note, is the army value really is quite a bit different because of all the Yari cavalry together with the Kanobo Samurai, which are very efficient considering the fact that they are 1 population point. So we're just going to drive it home now. All we need to really do is 1A it down mid, the classic Protoss strategy. Just stick everybody down mid and just watch as your Colossus obliterate the enemy. That is exactly what's happening here. Meanwhile, we're just pumping reinforcements, just making sure that we've got units in queue. He says, do we have units in queue? Yeah, we got units in queue. We got some. We waited for the Daimyo as well. That was part of the reason why we delayed our attack. But essentially, at this point, it's just a matter of being able to out damage the healer elephants, and everything's going absolutely perfectly here. So that is essentially it. That's my take on the Dark Age strategy. I'm curious what your thoughts are. Are there ways that we could potentially improve this? I've also thought about moving into just in the Dark Age, like the early, the early whatchamacallit, excuse me, the early wheelbarrow replacement. I think +1 probably makes a bit of sense, but the wheelbarrow replacement, I'm not too sure about it. Actually, I don't think we can pause the game from here. We're just gonna have to dive out of it. But let's talk a little bit. Just give me a second here. Okay, so a little bit more of a theory crafting part of the video. So, like, obviously we've got cheats on here, so just keep that in mind. So your standard opening is just going to be, like, your opening with the Matsuri, and then sending out your Yatai, getting them out there. So you're typically going to open with 3. At the same time, you're going to be looking, so let's go have a look right now for any of those trade posts. You want to try and find the trade posts. Excuse me, we've got quite a few scouts that are coming out here. So locating the trade post, I think, is obviously an important component of this strategy, because you kind of need to know where you're going. Early racks is another thing to note. Like, maybe you just don't go in early racks unless you need to. If you scout the opponent and see, okay, they're not interested in making units, or, you know, there's no stable that's coming up here, then why would you need to do that, right? So maybe that's just even more power to you, in the sense that you can go into... You can double down even further into traders. Speaking of traders, what is going on right here? Because I do not see a single... Oh, there it is. Okay, so this is a really good trade post. So this is exactly what I was talking about, in the sense that you're going to be defending your units, but at the same time... let's not go and attack. Let's not go into the town center, my friend. So you're defending your trade line, but at the same time, you're defending your Yatai. So that's like the whole philosophy behind this, in that if your enemy's going to want to attack this Yatai, they may also want to attack the trade line as well. So now you're defending 2 things at the same time. So, you know, it's slightly more effective way to... Not necessarily slightly more effective, but, you know, you're already doing one thing, so you might as well do the second one as well. And then from here, what are we looking to do? We're just looking to throw down our Matsuri in the corner. And then the other thing to note is we can then put walls up as well. So I don't know whether this would make sense to do, probably not in the Dark Age, maybe once you've got going for a little bit, then it would make sense, but like, you can make some really good walls, as an example on this map right here, Dry Arabia, probably one of the best walling maps that there are. So here you can see we've got that standard wall line that you would typically see. Here we can do something like that. It's probably a little bit too far forward. You could probably even like justify coming back across like this, over to the stone outcropping, and then from the stone outcropping, come across here, and then like from here, you can bring the Yatai across and then just wall this part off as your final wall. But I mean, like, these traders here are only making 11, so that is not hot at all. But by the time you get over here and you say, hey, I want you guys to go trade over there, now they're doing 43, and 43 is a lot closer to what a villager is going to be generating. So that's going to be a key component. Another thing to note is that with your Matsuri, always make sure that you, or your initial one, always tell them, hey, come over here, make sure that you do the trade. So he'll come out and he'll initially land at this trader outpost, and then he'll come back over towards this Matsuri instead. That's where he will end up. That will be his home Matsuri. The other thing to note is we want to redirect them to this specific Matsuri. We don't want them to go over to this one because we're not going to really be using this one. Maybe a little bit later in the game. Another thing to note, this is a drop-off point, so I guess technically you could like put the Matsuri here if you wanted to, but you know, you're obviously got to be thinking you want to try and prioritize that trade as well. But I think in a circumstance like this, it could probably make sense for you to just stick it. I mean, you could probably even just throw it there. It probably makes a bit more sense, and then that way you can gather with this villager. It's a little bit of a long-distance gather, but hey, who's never done long-distance gathering among us? Be honest. So I think from here, your other flex options include like going into Tawara. Now, Tawara is great, but the other thing to note is that you're not going to be gathering berries, right? If we think about the early game, our priority is going to be going after deer, and this is 2350 deer. On top of that, we could also look to just gather up sheep as well. So we don't really need to do this. It makes sense if you're playing OG Japanese, because now you're doubling down on berry bush bonuses, and it's like, it just makes sense from an optimal start perspective. But other than that, it's an upgrade that I feel like it's probably worth getting it in transition, but like 50 gold is a lot of gold, especially when you could potentially make a trader. Now, further to that, you could also, that's probably not the best wall. We should definitely fix that one up, don't worry. We realize eventually. Something like that. Maybe works. So then, of course, you've got Tatara. I think Tatara is one of those upgrades where you don't even think about it, right? 35 gold for +1 damage. You're talking about a unit that is doing 7 damage going to 8 damage. It's a huge amount of damage, right? So definitely worthwhile. The other thing to note is the Samurai as well. So yeah, with regard to like opening build order, I think we've kind of got it nailed down, but the transition period is going to be the main thing. But anyway, I'm curious. If you see any improvements here, let me know. Leave it down in the comments, because this is a strategy I'm going to be running with. I'm going to see if we can make this work. It's just going to be like Fetch and Mean Girls. Was it Fetch and Mean Girls? I think it was Fetch and Mean Girls. Let me double check. Yeah, it was Fetch. Fetch from Mean Girls. I shouldn't have said, yeah, it's Fetch. I mean, like, yeah, it was Mean Girls. That's where Fetch was from. Anyway, that's so Fetch. We'll leave it there, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video.